Yo, what's good, family? Welcome to another episode of Late Night Traffic Report with your boy, Mr. Sencere.
And I'm your girl, Kay Callie.
First and foremost, before we get into the show tonight, it's a pleasure to have you back on the set.
I am happy to be back.
Took a vacation, now you're back, now you're ready to jump right into it, right?
Yep, fresh off vacation, ready to be back.
Good stuff, good stuff.
Good to be back.
So tonight's episode, she loved my potential and I loved her peace. So what does that really mean? We're going to be talking about unbalanced love, unhealed partnerships, and the silent burden of being someone's project.
That's deep.
It's very deep. It's very deep. I think a lot of guys can relate to this, right? In their relationships, whether if you're married or you're in a serious relationship.
I think the ladies too.
Absolutely. We're going to talk about it tonight. So she loved my potential. She saw the man that I could be, but not the mess I was. But the problem with that is the man just loves her peace, loves the woman that she is. He's not looking to change. He's not looking necessarily to fix. So what happens when two people fall in love with the idea instead of reality? Somebody always ends up bleeding. Let's talk about it. When love turns into a project.
That's deep. I think we can start off with the good intentions in a relationship. I think as we evolve, just personally, we start off, like she said, like women, we see potential. And I think it's interesting what you said as men, when you say peace, what do you mean by peace? Is peace really equates to like what you alluded to is men like are accepting the women as we are, and men typically don't want us to change?
Yes, but I think it goes a few layers deeper than that. When I say peace, because oftentimes people say peace,
Yeah.
I think from a man's perspective, we're constantly at war, right? With externally and internally. And the peace that we're seeking, the peace that I'm describing is when I'm with you, but when that man is with that woman, the warring stops.
Yeah.
He's no longer at war.
Okay.
That's the type of peace that I'm talking about that most men are seeking. And when a woman can be that peace or be that contributing factor, that calming mechanism in a man's life, it's a beautiful thing because, again, especially as a black man, we are at war. Every time we walk out that door, we got to actually be a version of ourselves just to make it. Regardless, if it's personally or professionally, we have to put on this mask to go out there, to fit in, to fight, to be able to compete. So again, when I'm talking about peace, I'm talking about you're that comfort to the stressors, the warring that I have going on. That's the type of peace that I'm talking about.
Yeah. Okay. So I think, it's really nothing wrong with seeing someone's potential, the woman seeing someone's potential, a man's potential, and you guys growing together. I think what happens is when you get together, you get married, it's when you don't have conversations up front where you're not anticipating the growth or you're growing at different rates, you know? And I do think there's a segment of relationships that we go into it with our own expectations, but we're not conveying those expectations to the other person.
Well,
It's one sided.
let's unpack that. So the first thing comes to mind when what you just described, right? It almost like it becomes a burden to be someone's potential instead of being their partner. Does that make sense?
So you feel like you have to live up to what their expectation might be of you.
It's simple. Like you're so much focused on the idea
Mhm.
that someone's going to transform into what you want them to be
Right.
instead of accepting who they are. And it's nothing wrong with wanting to build and change for the better,
Yeah.
but it can't be forced upon someone.
Yeah.
And we're going to talk about the dynamics of that relationship. Like when a woman is so focused on a guy's potential, she kind of overlooks who he is because it's
Mm.
that promise of what he could be. And we all know shit don't always go the way
Mm.
it's planned. We all know that life will kick you behind. You know what I
Right.
mean?
And
We
you
know
get
that.
curveballs too.
Yes, we
So
know that.
things, life happens, life's, right? So I think people don't, especially when you start at the beginning of a relationship, when you're at the beginning of the relationship, you're in love, you're googly eyes, you think, the best of the person, you're only seeing maybe, a certain percentage of really who they are. And you're looking at all of the possibilities,
Yeah.
right? And I think that's a beautiful thing. I think the newness of love is a beautiful thing. I think it's what can also keep you grounded and
But hold on.
navigate you
But
back
hold
together.
but I also think that women feel, and look, obviously I'm not a woman,
Mm-mm.
but just from our friends and the people we talk to, and some of our friends that the relationship didn't necessarily go as planned. I think women make this mistake too often of over investing emotionally in the what could be opposed to what is the current state or
What
today.
is? Yeah. Yeah. Um, well, maybe we're just dreamers.
Well, it's nothing wrong with being a dreamer, but
No,
sometimes you
I
got
know
to
what
wake
you
the fuck up
No, I know what you mean.
and participate in the now and reality.
Right. No, I think so. And you have to also um know when to fold them, know when it's time to pull out, if you will. Because that potential that you might be seeking may not you might be he might be getting his piece from you, but you're not maybe gonna get your full potential from him, right?
But let's also talk about
So
that.
know when you might have to, you know,
Let's talk about that because
cut it.
that brings up a very interesting point, and I think that we need to really um, identify and maybe go a layer deeper
Okay.
what this means. What I'm about to say. I think sometimes me,
Okay.
confuse healing energy with emotional rescue.
Hmm. Okay.
Do you understand what I'm saying
Let's
when I
break
say
that
that?
down for our viewers.
Healing energy,
Okay.
right?
Healing energy. Okay.
It has to generate from within.
Hmm.
I can't heal through you.
Hmm.
You can help my healing process, but it's initiated from within.
Hmm.
And I think men sometimes, especially men with different backgrounds, and we talked about the various different backgrounds and types of men. I think that men, it's almost like you start to want it too much for the both, or you want it for the both of you, and a man, you know what I'm saying, almost kind of falls back and really sinks into, especially if he's emotionally distant. I guess what I'm saying, if he's very emotional distant and haven't been able to process his emotions, right,
Okay.
or
Okay.
conflict resolution, and it's many other different factors that play a part in that. But I think sometimes someone championing and supporting you, right?
Mhm.
I think if you're not in a right mental state, or if you don't know how to process emotion, it becomes emotional rescue. And healing energy again starts from within. You
Okay.
can support my healing process, right? You can motivate, you can support me, you can motivate me, you can encourage me, you can do these different things. But I think that I can't be so dependent that I feel like I have to go to you for emotional rescue.
Hmm. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I can see. And I mean, also when I was listening to that, I heard maybe sometimes you hear people say like trauma bonding too.
Yeah.
I wonder if, that can be at play. I think sometimes we do that in relationships. But back to what I was saying, I think when you made the comment about emotionally investing too
Overly
much,
emotional investing.
overly investing emotionally too fast. I think it's that, but I think it's a sense of doing that, and to some degree, that's fine, especially depending on where you are in life, your age, and what you're looking to get from the relationship, or that. But I think knowing when you might need to take a turn or take a pivot. I think so much, especially if we're seeking something, not even just age, you can be younger, you can be even kind of middle age, but if you're, a woman who hasn't had kids and but you're in your 40s and you meet a guy and it's like, okay, we're going to meet, we're going to get married, I'm going to have a kid, you have it all planned out. So you're just looking to go down this path
Mm.
and check these boxes, but you could be overlooking all these other things. But if you check all the boxes, is that what are you successful, or is that relationship going to be successful because you checked all the boxes, and then what? You know? So I think I think what it comes down to is you have to, before you go into a relationship or really get deep into a relationship, understand what you two have to come together and make sure you're on the same page about what you want out of the relation.
Expectations.
I think setting the
Yeah.
expectations, I think that would clear up the relying or looking too deep into someone's potential, or focusing only on what they can be, and it's not even like their potential, it's focusing on
What you want them to
what
be,
I'm
the
gonna
idea, what you want to
what I
mold
think
them.
I can make you, or turn
Right.
you into, or you become that project, right? And then from the other side, as far as being the piece, you actually you don't end up being their piece, because you end up kind of, okay, you gotta do this, okay, yep, go get this, and go apply for that job, and you can do this, and then you should do this, and you should go back to school,
So,
and you should do, but you know that's not peace,
so that's a perfect segue into the next segment.
Okay.
What happens when her piece is misused?
Mm.
What happens?
Okay.
Seeking emotional rest in people instead of building it from within. Like I said before, it starts within.
Mhm.
What happens when her piece is misused? And I'm asking you that because I want you to talk to walk us through how that possibly would make you feel from a woman's perspective, and how that. No, just go ahead, and we're
You
gonna
said when her piece is,
when she feels her piece is misused.
mm, like, how does it make the woman feel when
Yeah, because I think both are impacted, right? But slightly in slightly different ways.
I well, yeah, and I think what happens when her piece is misused, it causes her to obviously feel, you know, not appreciated, used, and then, if the relationship does sour and she moves on to someone else, that next person gets a hardened version of her. She may not give herself so easily, or she may be reluctant to get into relationships or so fast. And she might miss, honestly, a good opportunity and a great man because of how she overly
Invested,
invested.
yeah.
So, and that's why I think in between those types of relationships, it's always good, I think, to seek therapy,
Mm.
to one, focus on yourself. Like, if, I hear people, women and men, that are seeking and want relationships, and they don't know why I can't find someone but the thing is, in between that time, instead of focusing so much on finding someone, find yourself.
Well said.
Find yourself, find your peace, you know?
Well, I think this could potentially be a red flag, right? When a man often or continuously says, "She calms me, she calms me, she calms me," right?
Is
That's
that a code word?
I think so.
For what?
Well, I think he hasn't learned how to self-regulate, and he's dumping a lot of things on the
Mm,
on his partner, which I said earlier becomes a burden. So I think it's a danger,
mm,
or it's dangerous of treating someone else's love as therapy instead of a partnership.
mm.
Because
Yeah.
love is like a well, right?
Mhm.
And if you continue to take more water out that you pour in it, or
Pour,
you don't
yeah.
be not able to replenish it, then
Yeah.
the well runs dry, right?
Yeah.
And I think men and women really need to understand that. Like, it's really about pouring into each other
Yeah.
just enough, right? Just enough, not overly, because you
Right.
have to retain some for yourself.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think when, we have married couple of friends, and, friends that's in relationship or dating and whatnot, and I think it might be a surprise to them when they hear me say that, or some version of that.
Mhm.
Um, I think peace can go both ways,
Yeah.
but it may look a little differently, right? But it's
Okay.
similar,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And I think, I would tell, guys all the time, like, her peace is not yours to own or possess. It's not, right? You have to have your own. I think both sides should be more focused in protecting each other's peace, right? And,
Okay.
you know, really focusing on understanding, establishing boundaries, right?
Yeah.
Because sometimes I think that you can't be 100% emotionally there for someone, for your spouse. You can't, even in our being married
All the time,
all
for
the
sure.
time.
Yeah.
You just can't.
Yeah.
You just can't. So,
Yeah. I, yeah. I think that's true. I think, I think that's why it goes back to communication. I think, some days, you may have only 5% to give, literally. Some days you may have 90, Some days you might be back to 1%. But I think it's still about showing up. It's about, but it's about that communication. So it's about showing up, but it's also about the communication. Like, hey, I'm never gonna stop being there for you, but I may be going through something. So I may only have that 5% to show up, but I'm gonna give you all of that 5%. But, so I may need for you to bring the rest, that 95% that day. And then vice versa. It may flip. I need to bring the 95 and you bring the 5. You know what I mean? So I think, but it all goes back to communication and the expectations, right? I think people have unrealistic expectations about marriage and relationships. They look at relationships, some women, some men, but I think it's more women sometimes that look at relationships as a savior,
mm,
that it is going to flip and turn your life all around and it's going to be rosy, it's going to be perfect, it's
all
going
the time. That's the
all the time.
qualifier, I would say. All the
Exactly.
time.
It's all those things, but it's not all the time. And I think if you go into it with the balance of it's not going to be all the time, I think you will have a successful relationship, a successful marriage. And if when things navigate and don't go as planned or those trying times come, you will be better, even if it's going to be trying, but you'll have a better, uh, you'll be better equipped to handle it versus if you go into it thinking like everything's going to be perfect, nothing's going to happen, you're not going to change, you're still going to look the same, you're still going to want to do the same things, you want to eat the same food. Things can the person that you start off with is not going to be the person, not going to be the same version of the person that you
End up with.
it's not.
Close out with. Yeah. Close
And
the
you're not
game
going to
with.
be, but the bigger thing
Yeah.
is realizing too that you're not the same person.
So look, you're
You
on
know,
point tonight. You just segueing right into
smoking.
segment
I know I
three.
had you let me, go on a little vacation and I
Oh,
came back
okay.
refreshed.
All right. So let's talk about unhealed people building unbalanced love.
Okay.
Because your last spill, you kind of segue into this, right?
Okay.
So love doesn't heal with therapy, awareness, and accountability are meant to fix, right?
Oh,
I think that there's a lot of relationships. Again, we're centering this conversation around potential versus peace, right? Um, I think that a lot of people, I want to say, because I feel like women are usually much more emotionally invested, right?
sometimes.
But I think that there can be an unhealthy codependency, right? Dressed up as compatibility.
Huh.
What are your thoughts about that?
So you said an unhealthy.
Codependency dressed up as compatibility.
Hmm. When I hear that, the first thing that comes to my mind is someone like forcing something.
Okay.
They want something so bad that they're making it fit.
Mm.
Making the square fit into the round hole,
So would you say that
or the square fit into the oval. It might be, but if I just
would you say that men, women, or whoever's seeking the change, do you think it's a possibility for them to become emotionally exhausted from just trying to inspire, trying to insert, trying to manifest change before it should happen, or on
when you
a path or a timeline that the other person can't even meet that obligation or that
so
requirement?
when you say change, you mean they're seeking
Potential.
for their partner to
Yes.
go back to school or to finish that degree that they started. Just
Whatever
giving
it
an
may
example.
be,
Okay.
right? Because to me, I think that's a way of framing it. You can pinpoint it precisely. In some relationships, it's about going back to school. In most relationships, it's about getting better jobs. If it's or moving up the corporate ladder, or starting your own business, or whatever it is. I mean, it's all under the umbrella of potential to me.
Okay. Yeah. Or it could be being a better communicator.
Could be a better communicator, a
Yeah.
better husband, helping taking care of the kids, being more involved in the kids' life, reducing some of your workload. It could be an array of things. What
Okay.
I'm saying is it's all under the umbrella of potential. She thinks that you can do better than what you currently are.
Or like you said, and I guess this is where you were going, you're seeking change.
You're seeking change.
And you know what people don't like?
Change.
Change.
But
Yeah.
I said from the beginning though,
And you know what the one constant thing in life
change.
is? Change. But humans, we're pretty wired to be adverse to change. And I think maybe when thinking about this now as we're talking, I think one thing you want to know before you get serious with someone is how they navigate change, how they process change. Because that's what you're going to be navigating when you think about it in your relationship. You're going to be navigating in the simplistic form. You're navigating change.
You're navigating change, but
You are.
I think that men often become withdrawn because again, you want them to be on an accelerated timeline, and they're not ready to be that man or that person that you want them to be.
Yeah.
And I think that causes friction in a relationship. And I think that, tying back into what we were talking about a little bit earlier, it's about being exhausted
Yeah.
because you are overly invested.
Yeah.
So I think that we've established the nexus or the connection tissue, if you will,
Yeah.
when we talked about unbalanced love, when we talked about the misuse of her peace,
Mhm.
and just from the very beginning, being someone's project.
Yeah. Yeah.
that equation alone is unhealthy.
It is. It is, and it's not setting yourself up, not the other person, not yourself, in the relationship for success. Um, I think it's really it all goes back to communication and really setting the expectations of, again, what are you seeking from this relationship? Why do you even want to be in a relationship? Why do you want to get married? What I mean, it's something as simplistic of, unless you like go to premarital counseling and things. I mean, do people even really talk about like why I want to get married? What are you seeking to get? What do you think this marriage is going to bring you?
I think that's a valid point, but I think before you get to the discussion, the conversation about why you want to get married or getting married, I think that there's several more important
Okay.
questions and conversations that you need to ask before you even get to that point.
Okay.
I think, like, I use our relationship as an example,
Okay.
right? Long before we started talking about marriage, you asked me, what are my goals?
Okay.
Where do I see myself? How much money I wanted to make, as far as my career path, right?
Okay.
You remember that?
I do.
Even down to like, what type of car you was gonna drive
Sounds
and
like an interview, but okay.
yeah. But what I'm saying is I think that those conversations and those questions need to be asked before you jump into will you marry me or how many
Oh
kids you want
yeah.
to have
Oh, for
and all
sure.
that because I think that when you have those conversations and you ask those uh, specific questions,
Yeah.
I think you get an understanding of who the person is. Now, look,
Yeah.
people are just like in interviews, people bullshit. People tell you anything you want to hear.
And they prepare and like,
Yes,
even for an interview, you
yes,
prepare. You have rehearsed
yes.
your
But what
responses.
I'm saying is, if someone answers a particular question a certain way and you see their actions aligning with that.
Yep. Yep.
Now, yes, there are some times when people are very ambitious and people are who they say they are, and then this thing called life start lifing.
Yep.
But I think those are I think those are very rare cases, right? I
Yeah.
think that when you do your due diligence, right, and you really do, you ask the tough questions and you have those conversations.
Yeah.
I think people, if they listen,
Yeah.
people will tell you who they are. If you would meet a guy and a guy is like, just for, I'm just using this for example, right? Not talking about anyone in particular, but if they're like really like a mother's boy, right? A mama's boy, and
Yeah.
their mom is, taking care of them, cooking, cleaning, doing all these things.
Yeah.
And, he has like he's just content with being working at Foot Locker or whatever the case. He works at Foot Locker or something like
Okay.
that. And there's nothing wrong with working at Foot Locker, right?
Mhm.
If you're a young man or a young person, right? But I think there's characteristics if women really focus and not be distracted by the other variables, right?
Okay.
Right. I'm gonna keep it neat tonight, so I'm not gonna go into what I'm talking about exactly, but y'all know what I'm talking about.
Okay.
Um, you can kind of tell what type of man he is.
Okay.
Yeah, and then there are some men who just need help to find their way,
Yeah.
but they do the work first. They don't dump it all on you and expect you to be their guiding light. That's what I'm talking about.
Okay. Yeah. And I think it's hard, especially if you do that, like what you mentioned, as far as that over investing. It's hard to kind of navigate between are they willing to do the work and invest in themselves, or are they willing to be that, you know,
Look,
taker?
you're on fire tonight. That's a perfect segue into segment four,
Come on, it's
right?
Kate Callie. What did you expect?
Learning to love without saving or hiding.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's talk about that. What comes to mind when I say that?
Learning to love without saving
Without saving. So stop trying to save someone, right?
or or
And then
hiding.
on the other hand,
Mhm.
stop hiding who you really are.
Mm.
How do you be in a relationship without doing either of those two things? Because they can be very detrimental to a relationship.
Mm. That's interesting. I mean, those are
Let me ask another question.
two different.
What should love look like between two whole people?
Mm. It should look like both people showing up as themselves.
First and
Yeah.
foremost,
Yeah. And I think so much people aren't able to show up as themselves.
saving or hiding? Which one are
Yeah.
you doing?
Okay. So you're saying one or like the
No, I'm saying you should, both are detrimental.
right. But were you saying you do either one or the other, or you're saying they both can happen at the same time?
I think there's a problem when either of
Either are
those are
occurring.
happening.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
You can't save me, nor should I be hiding who I really am or who I want to be.
Right. Yeah.
So again, I'm gonna ask the question: how does love look like between two whole people?
Mm. Complete.
How though?
I mean, when you think about it, love is like
You don't have to give me like a philosophical.
I
How,
mean,
I mean, you're in a marriage. You
I
tell
know,
me how
and
how
and I'm gonna say exactly what I think. I feel when I hear that, like a beautiful nightmare.
how so?
It because it's the good, it's the bad, it's the ups, it's everything. It's every and I think to some degree that's what love is. You know, love is, it's happiness, it's kindness, but it's also disappointment.
Okay,
It's also, you know, it's going through grief. It's so many things and journeys that you go along if you're committed in a committed relationship, even if maybe you're not married, but you're in a committed relationship. Just it's so many emotions that you have to be willing to buckle up and ride with that person on. Um,
facts.
so I think that's what love is. So it's not.
So
I
I
think when you hear love, you just think about it's like just like a feeling, it's not the pitter patter of your heart. Love is commitment. Love is like sticking it. It's the grit of life and just sticking, investing. You know what I mean? But it's also last thing. It's also knowing having enough. I don't know. I'm just gonna say intuition to pick that right person though. Because all of what I'm saying, I don't want to contradict because you're just not going to ride this ride with just anybody.
so let me expound a little bit on that. I
Okay.
think everything what you said is spot on.
Okay.
But when I think about love, right, and healthy, loving relationships,
Okay.
right, when nobody's saving nor is anyone hiding,
Uh-huh.
right, showing up as who you are,
Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
it's mutual growth,
Yes.
it's grace,
Grace.
it's
Grace is
understanding,
grace is a
it's
big one.
flexibility, it's compromising your individual interests for the greater
Greater good.
of the greater good. It's patience. It's understanding my needs, your needs,
Uh-huh.
and as a collective, what our needs are for the family,
Yeah.
right? It's about being aligned,
Yeah.
not in everything, not on everything, but spiritually, emotionally,
Yeah.
understanding and knowing when I can't take any more of your emotional dumping and vice versa.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what love, and that's just a few things when
Yeah.
when 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 we're talking about how does love look between two whole people. It's
Huh.
about understanding
Yeah.
my flaws and accepting me because you're imperfect as well as I am.
Yeah.
That's what love is
Yeah.
about. But
Yeah.
I'm gonna circle back again.
Okay.
And
That's
that's what hiding. That's why you can't have hiding in your
yeah.
relationship,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Because if you're hiding, you're sending a representative. If you're
Yeah.
hiding, you're not being 100. If you're hiding, you're not keeping it funky. And when you're hiding, you're not being 100. You're just not.
Yeah.
And then when you feel like you're saving someone, so you're pulling someone who is essentially kicking and screaming and really don't want to go.
Mm.
But just you are so laser focused on what you want,
What
because
you
it's
want.
almost, it's really selfishness when I think about it, right? You're trying to save someone who may not want to be saved, right?
Yeah.
Or may not want to be saved that day or that season or that year. Again, you have to meet people where they are.
Yeah.
And if you guys are not aligned,
Yeah.
or if you're not willing to accept who this person is
Yeah.
at their current state, at their desired state, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
You have to do that
You do. Yeah. I
because you
mean,
can't will change into people. You can support change into people, right? Or
yeah.
people changing, but it initiates from within. You can help them. That's why I was talking about earlier,
Mhm.
healing energy versus emotional rescue. They're
Mhm.
two different things.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's deep. And huh. um you said a lot, but one thing that stuck out to me that you said was with love comes also grace.
Yeah.
I think grace is a it's a strong, powerful word, but I think a lot of times we don't give enough grace to ourselves. And in times, I think we don't give enough grace to our partners.
And
Um,
grace is a part of peace.
Grace and giving grace allows you to protect your own peace, I think,
Well,
sometimes
yeah.
too.
But I'm
Yeah.
just saying, like, from a man's perspective, when a woman is willing to give grace, that means you're understanding. That means,
Yeah.
despite of whatever the circumstances, and look, I'm not saying any and everything, but what I'm saying is, again, like men are seeking to be around women who gives them peace, not to not to be their mamas,
Yeah.
not to not to plan the rest of their life out or change them, because men don't really want that. Men really don't like a lot of change, right? I think we've already established that. But what they need is grace and peace,
Yeah.
that I'm not going to contribute to every other battle and obstacle that you have in your life.
Yeah.
That's what men are seeking, seeking in a
Okay.
relationship with their significant other. I think also, I think that both men and women need to honor each other's peace without turning your partner into your therapist.
Ugh, yeah.
I think that's something too. I think that it's definitely healthy to talk about things that's bothering you or things as it pertains to the family, the relationship, etc. But I don't think you should just be dumping all your shit on your spouse.
Well,
I mean,
and
a lot of people emotional
and
bank is full.
yeah.
Man, you've had this conversation. I've done, um, work to be better from an
Yeah.
emotional perspective. But at
Yeah.
one time, like, I can't take on somebody else's emotional, uh,
Yeah.
issues and problems and stuff. My bank is
Yeah.
filled. I can't take nothing. I can't take anymore.
And I think that's where investing in yourself, like I mentioned earlier, as far as doing the work for yourself early on in the relationship or before you get into the relationship, working on you. But I think it's important to, like you alluded to, along your journey, also being willing to seek therapy. Um, I think, what you're saying is, while your spouse can be, you know, your sounding board, your listening ear, I think you do have to consider them and what they may be going through and how much emotional uh like how much they can actually take and bear. There may be certain seasons where it may be, I like I said, you can give that 80%. You may have 80% to give. There may be seasons where you have 20, but I think it goes back to being self-aware, having emotional awareness to, and I guess it goes back to what you were alluding to, protecting their peace in a sense. But I guess I'm going to put a little bit of spin on that and say you do need to communicate though, and I don't think you're advocating for like not being open, not sharing with your partner. I think you're alluding what you're saying is not dumping. Where you're almost like transferring your weight onto another
Exactly.
person. So
Exactly.
I think that's what,
That's
so I just
exactly
want to
what I'm saying.
be, yeah. So I
Yes.
just want to kind
You got
of
to be cautious of that. Yes.
clarify that.
So,
Yeah.
communicating and sharing feelings and concerns, that's normal and that's healthy,
Yeah.
right? That's uh, foundational to having a positive relationship,
Yeah.
right? So I would say that I think, regardless if it's, because sometimes, and I don't think it's a lot, I think that the numbers would support that it's mostly a woman's
Oh,
um, preference to look at potential, right?
I haven't looked at the
Well,
studies, but
and I'm kind of torn, and
yeah,
I don't want to
I don't
just
know.
completely switch gears because statistics do also show now that some women, in particular communities, want a well already packaged product, right? But that comes with its own set of
Yeah.
issues as well. But I'm gonna stay on topic, and I would say, whether if it's a man or a woman,
Yeah.
like we have to stop shrinking behind potential,
Okay.
right, and start rising in presence, right? So stop on, looking at what this could be
Right.
rather than looking at what it is.
Right. Right.
I think those establish um, a healthier pathway
Yeah.
to what could become. But you can't look into the future without addressing the now. Does that make
Right.
sense?
Right.
That's what I'm saying.
Right.
Like it's nothing wrong with saying I want a future with somebody.
Yeah.
But you have to do the work now. You
Yeah.
just can't fast forward or teleport or skip phases and
Right.
stages to get to where it just doesn't work that way.
Right.
And I
Right.
think that's where a lot of um, the conflict emerges, right? Because
Yeah.
do you want to fast forward to something, right? You want almost this finished product
Kind of speed it up.
without
Yeah.
it being built properly.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. 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 But you got to always be willing to do the work.
So we covered a lot
We
tonight.
we really have.
And as with every show, like, we're not therapists. We talk about our own lives, our own experiences, some of our friends, and some of the things we observe. And
Yeah.
it's all in good faith. It's all into, if anyone, I don't care if it's one person, two people, 10 people, 20 people, that's going through a relationship or thinking about going to the next step.
Yeah.
That's kind of what the purpose of these particular topics
Right.
is about, right?
Yeah.
Helping, others as we were helped.
Right.
Giving advice, you can take it. It might make sense to you, it might not. But
Take it, leave it.
yeah, that's really what it's
Yeah.
about. And I think that, again, we know for certain that this is an issue, particularly in our community, right?
Yeah.
And I think that in order to properly address it, you have to talk about it. But we also, all of us have to do the work,
Yeah.
right? It's not about, pointing the finger at the black women, and vice
Yeah.
versa. It shouldn't be about pointing the finger at black men.
Right.
We all have to do the work within ourselves first.
Right. Right.
And that's just period, right? Before you get in any type of relationship,
You
you
have
got
to
to do the
work.
work yourself. And you you can't build a future off of who someone might become. You just can't.
Yeah.
Some people have rolled the dice and it's worked. But again, I think if you don't have those conversations,
Yeah.
right? Those initial conversations, I think you can have the best intentions,
Yeah.
but if someone's not in a good space to receive it,
Right.
then it becomes problematic.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. There's a lot. We touched a lot of topics. One thing I think that just resonates with me is that relationships equal change. Life equals change, right? And I think we just have to really keep in the forefront when we're getting into relationships, navigating, whatever relationship. I mean, it could be, we're talking about romantic relationships, but even friendships. How do people navigate change? Because I know this is going a little bit off topic, so I'm going to break it back real quick. When you think about friendships, how when those go south, a lot of that is because it's some type of change has happened. And you got a new relationship and now you're not as available for me. And now I don't know how to process that, you know? So I think it all goes back to how, as people, as humans, do we process change? So yeah. So I don't know how do we want to close out today?
I think you did a good job.
Okay.
The only thing that I would add to it is, again, you need to focus on the now. Focus on the now. Focusing on the now and establishing the foundation, right? Asking the tough questions, having a tough
Yeah.
dialogue.
Yeah.
Because again, your intentions can be very good for someone. But if they're not in a position or a place to receive it,
Yeah.
it's not going to be taken that way.
Right.
And they'll start resenting you. Then once you overly invest emotionally, you'll start resenting them.
Yeah.
Then the relationship is over.
Yeah. That's true.
So I think tonight was a pretty good show.
Yeah.
And glad that you're back.
Happy to be back. Always a good